So in a previous video on how to actually export, I was futzing around with trying to show you guys how to make a preset for export, and it didn't work so well. So I wanted to show you an easier way to do it. So first, open up the export engine, and while you have it open and you're ready to export out an image, basically go into any one of the existing recipes that are here and go ahead and set it up to have what you want it to be. So first I'm going to go in here and I'm going to reset all of these to whatever the default should be. It looks like this one has been changed, so it's actually wrong too. So anyway, so let's go in here. So I'm going to go in and change this to a DNG. And by changing it to DNG, it's basically ready to go. On the location, I'm going to go ahead and choose to, we'll just do it to the desktop for our general purposes as a default startup. And we'll say choose folder. So now it just goes to the default, which is the desktop of the computer. And then I'll go through, and with a DNG, there's not a lot of other settings because it's tied into a file type that is different than other file types. So we'll just go ahead and do that. And then what I'm going to go ahead and do is we'll leave the file name as is. And then once I've done all of this, it'll tell me that the recipe is been changed because of what I'm doing here. So now when I go up into here, I will go up to the top here and I will click, actually I'll skip the plus for the new, and what I will do is click here and say duplicate the actual recipe. So that actually duplicates the recipe that I just created, but now I can go in, highlight this out, and just go in and say, okay, let's make this very simple. We'll just go ahead and make it a DNG. And since there's no other specific details about it, I could just do something like this and just call it DNG or something. So now I've created a recipe for exporting out an actual DNG. So now if I want to export out any of these files as a DNG, say for example the file you're looking at on the screen, I would just go ahead then and export it out. So for intents and purposes, this is how to export a DNG out of Capture One. The one thing to keep in mind is that when exporting out DNGs, you cannot bring these DNGs back into Lightroom because they won't show the processing that you did in Capture One. Same problem you run into if you export out a DNG from Lightroom. Only a few little things will reflect, like if you change something that the camera had done, such as maybe changing the white balance or changing the sharpening, that will reflect when you bring it in, but most of the rest of your processing won't. Maybe crop might. It's one of those things you'll have to play with to see what your results are. So realistically, yeah, if you're using Capture One just to do tethered capturing, and then you're capturing, and then you're going to use Lightroom to do all of the rest of your processing, you're just using Capture One to bring in the images as the raw files that they are. Once they come in, you then just take those images, import them into Lightroom, and do what you need to do. Or if you're going to work with Lightroom to be the ingest, to do all the importing, then you're just going to be using the interface of the library to look at stuff, and then you use Capture One to do your work and your exports. Anyways, sidebarring, of course, here, let's go back into here now. I'll just go ahead and click Export Out One Image. Once again, it's going to the desktop, so if I want to be a little bit more specific on the desktop, I'll leave the desktop there, and then I'll create a subfolder, and I'll just call this DNG Export Test. And that's the subfolder it's going to go into, and I will just go ahead and click Export One Image. And then when it gets done, I can go in and take a look at the desktop folder, and you'll see that there it is, and it's done. Now, I have to say, other than doing Photoshop files, all the rest of the other exporting that I've done out of this program is pretty amazingly quick. So there you go. DNG export. Rather simple.